And welcome. I'm Rob Stewart. I'm the president and CEO of the LSU Foundation. And on behalf of the LSU Foundation, Real Estate and Facilities Foundation, the Project Management Committee of the University Lakes Project, it's my pleasure to welcome you tonight to our discussion of the Phase 1 improvements. And let me begin by saying a sincere thank you to East Baton Rouge Parish, to Mayor Broome, to the City Parish Council, to Superintendent Corey Wilson at BREC and the BREC Board, as well as Commissioner of Administration Jay Darden and the state of Louisiana for the opportunity to pull together the funding in spite of COVID and the other issues to allow us really to get started with the project and do what we're going to discuss as Phase 1. So we're thrilled to have you with us tonight to learn more about the project, and we believe we'll be able to cover all the answers to all of your questions at this point. And I would like to turn it over to Fred Brayford with the East Baton Rouge Parish Mayor's Office.
I appreciate it, Robert. And on behalf of Mayor Sharon Weston Broome, I want to appreciate everybody who's going to be participating tonight in this meeting, the Zoom meeting, and kind of get an update on where we are with the University Lakes project. As you all well know, this project has been out there for some time. And it seems to me, based on all the information that we're gathering today, it looks like that we're going to see this project become reality. And I think with all the sponsors that have put up and we're willing to provide some of the financing that's necessary, I think this project will become reality, and I think it'll be a great enhancement for the East Baton Rouge Parish. I know there's going to be some questions. Certainly, there's no question we have somebody who can answer those questions in general, so we're going to pass it on to you.
Thank you, Fred. My name is Mark Goodson. I'm with the B&D CSRS joint venture. We were selected at the beginning of this year to serve as project advisor to University Lakes LLC for the implementation of the University Lakes project. We're at 87 participants. Thank you everyone who has joined, and we welcome those who will join as we begin the presentation. The purpose of this virtual public meeting tonight is both to provide an update on where the project stands as of today, but also as an opportunity to renew the community outreach for this project that will be undertaking as we kick off this first phase. Next slide, please. So just a quick background on the project and how we got to where we are today. When we talk about the University Lakes project, as a point of reference, we're talking about the 6 lakes that make up the system that really surrounds the LSU campus. That includes University Lake, City Park Lake, Lake Crest, Erie Lake, College Lake, and Campus Lakes. I hope most, if not all of you, would agree that that system makes up one of the most important assets that we have to our community. If you've spent any time around or near the lakes, you've seen that they're in a state of declining health, both what you can see in terms of the algae and some of the issues that are going on with the water in the lakes themselves. Well, also we know that the quality of the water in the lakes and some of the surrounding area has declined over time as the lakes have begun to fill in since they were dredged in the 1920s, since they were dug rather in the 1920s. In 2016, a master plan was released for the restoration and enhancement of the University Lakes. That master plan was commissioned by the Baton Rouge Area Foundation. And you can view that master plan at the project website, csrsinc.com/lakes. I want to stress that while the University Lakes project that we're discussing tonight is principally about implementing that master plan, what that master plan does is set out a vision for what the lakes could become and how they can be improved. We want to honor the work of that master plan, both the technical expertise that's in it and the community outreach that went into it. But there's still a lot that we have to figure out to get from the vision in the master plan to a real project. And we're going to discuss some of that in terms of what's going to take place in Phase 1. As Rob and Fred both mentioned, we're fortunate that there's a great deal of support for the project. And to date, approximately $50 million has been committed from multiple sources. The implementation of the University Lakes project is set to occur in phases, beginning with phase 1, which I'll describe in more detail in just a moment. Just to give some explanation of how the leadership of the project is organized and how the project will be governed. This is a project of the LSU Real Estate and Facilities Foundation. They're providing the leadership and administration for the project overall. But because we're so fortunate to have the support of many state and local entities and organizations, and because of the high profile nature of the project, a project management committee has been put together to help lead and provide direction for the project. That project management committee is made up of the state of Louisiana, representatives of the neighborhoods around the lakes, the city parish government, BREC, Baton Rouge Area Foundation, and LSU. And the LSU Real Estate and Facilities Foundation has created a special purpose entity, the University Lakes LLC, to oversee the implementation of the project. That is who B&D CSRS is working for as project advisor. And that is the entity that will be ultimately procuring the work to design and construct the improvements to the lakes. So I've mentioned phase 1 a couple times. What does that include? We're very fortunate to say that phase 1 will include the due diligence and schematic design for all 6 of the lakes in the University Lakes system. When I talk about due diligence, that's a number of investigations and analyses that need to take place to better understand the existing conditions of the lakes and better inform the design process. Phase 1 will also include what we call the flood risk reduction construction for 4 of the 6 lakes: City Park Lake, Erie Lake, Campus, and College Lakes. When we talk about flood risk reduction construction, we're talking primarily about the deepening and reshaping of the lakes, both of which were recommended in the master plan as a means to improve water quality. We also know that they will also help improve drainage in the surrounding area. Lastly, the improvements in phase 1 will also include mobility design and construction around City Park Lake and Campus Lake, which will include both dedicated bike and pedestrian paths, as well as new lighting and site amenities. So we've received a number of questions already about the schedule. If you follow the project to date, you may have seen that we currently have several requests for proposals out to help procure professionals to assist with the due diligence and design that I just described. Those include requests for proposals for geotechnical data collection and sediment sampling, bathymetric and stump identification surveys, as well as for master design services. We plan also to publish a request for proposals or qualifications later this year for the flood risk, for the flood risk reduction design component. Very sorry. We hope to begin that schematic design work, thank you, in earnest, either by the end of this year or the beginning of next, but certainly in the upcoming winter. We hope to, in the spring of next year, procure a contractor in an accelerated project delivery manner to help begin the deepening and reshaping of the lakes. And we expect that actual construction work, to begin in the fall of next year, around the fall of next year. I would stress that while this is an anticipated schedule, this is a large and complicated project, and those dates may shift slightly. Now that we've provided the update, I want to be able to respond to a number of questions that we've already received, and we thank you very much for those who have taken the time to submit those questions. Many of the questions were duplicative or asking similar questions, and so we've organized our responses into sort of some broad categories that I think will help cover those questions asked. You also can ask questions via the Q&A function in Zoom. We've seen a couple come up, so appreciate that. Please keep them coming if there's anything else that you would like us to address at this meeting. First of all, we've had a few questions about the opportunity to provide feedback in the project as we begin phase 1. And we absolutely intend to provide opportunities to the community and stakeholders to provide input and feedback as we begin the design work for the project. So there will be multiple opportunities, most likely through a variety of forums, both virtual like this and hopefully eventually in person, as well as maybe other online or phone methods that you can submit feedback and ideas. You can continue to ask questions. We want the feedback from the community and stakeholders as we continue to refine plans for the lakes. There are a number of questions about the sediment in the bottom of the lakes. How much is to be removed? How long will that take? And where will it be placed? While the master plan recommends, and we do intend to use the sediment that's removed from the lakes through the deepening and reshaping process, the flood risk reduction design and the master design teams will help us better understand the makeup of the sediment, where it can be placed, how long it will take to settle, and what mitigation steps we can take to make sure that the impacts to the surrounding community are minimized as much as possible. We hear the concerns about, potentially reducing the surface area of the lakes. I would say the master plan specifically notes that, especially along East Lakeshore Drive. And so we want to be careful that we're enhancing the value, especially for the folks who live around the lakes, but also those who live near and enjoy the lakes on a regular basis. So we're mindful of that. And there's still a lot that we need to better understand about the makeup and how deep the sediment layer is at the bottom of the lakes before we can provide more detailed information. We'll be forthcoming with that as we get it as part of that ongoing outreach effort that I mentioned a moment ago. There were a number of questions about the recommendations in the master plan involving converting some of the streets around the lakes to one way. I'll say we do not intend to move forward with that in this first phase of work. And while that is a recommendation along some streets in the 2016 master plan, there are a number of steps that must be taken before a decision related to that can ultimately be made, including Metro Council approval. Frankly, we just don't have the budget in this first phase to tackle that task, but we'll continue to take questions and collect feedback for those of you who have questions and concerns related to that. Just know that's not something in the scope of phase one that we intend to address. Lastly, we've had a number of questions related to drainage and the potential impact to drainage in the surrounding neighborhoods that the project may have. The project will ultimately improve drainage to the surrounding areas. We don't intend to cut off any existing drainage or stop up or redirect any drainage. In fact, we want the lakes to be an asset that can help better manage that drainage and stormwater, including clean it as it comes into the lake to help with some of the water quality issues. So we do not intend to, at this stage, cut off any drainage outlets into the lake. We may improve them, but it's all, we believe, for the benefit of the areas that drain into the lake, especially the neighborhoods that surrounds the lakes themselves. There have been a few more questions about future phases, how long they will take and what they entail. We've identified as sort of the next priority, the deepening and reshaping of the two remaining lakes, University Lake, the biggest lake, and Lake Crest on the other side of Dalrymple. Depending on when funding is available and what conditions may be attached to it. That is the anticipated next phase of work. However, as new funding becomes available, we will do our best to use it in the most beneficial and strategic way. Hopefully, we will be able to secure enough to deepen and reshape in those two remaining lakes, and then move on to the other recommendations of the plan. There are questions, we're getting a question about accessibility, especially for those with disabilities and the Americans with Disabilities Act. As part of the mobility improvements, we know that will include ramps and different tools to improve accessibility of the facilities around the lakes. And so that will be built into everything that's designed on the mobility side in phase one and ongoing. number of questions we're getting tonight regarding, the sediment or the dirt that's to be removed from the lake and where it will be placed. Again, while the master plan has some recommendations, there's a lot more information that we need in order to make those final determinations, including your input. So as we get more information through the due diligence process, the geotechnical data collection and the sediment sampling and the bathymetric survey, we'll better know exactly how that sediment can be handled and where it can go. And we'll be coming back to the community with those recommendations to collect feedback in the coming months. There's a question here about the criteria for prioritizing execution. I would assume that means implementation of the plan. As I stated, with regard to phase 2, really the critical path that we've been following has been to first improve the health of the lakes. And that primarily includes deepening the lakes themselves and reshaping the lakes. And so that is first and foremost our priority as a function of the funding that we have available now to move into phase 1. That allows us to deepen 4 of the 6, as I mentioned. But with the remaining funds, while it's not enough to deepen all 6 lakes, it does allow us to go ahead and put in some mobility enhancements around City Park and Campus Lake. And I should say the 3 primary funding sources for phase 1 are BREC, the City Parish, and the state of Louisiana. So we very much appreciate their support. There are some conditions that come with that funding. For example, the approximately almost $5 million coming from the City Parish has to be used for mobility improvements. So we're doing our best to maneuver between the amount of funding that we have, the timing of when it's available, and the conditions that come with that funding to be able to put it to its best possible use at this time. One question asking if phase 1 does not include University Lake. It includes the schematic design of University Lake, but it does not include final design or any construction along University Lake, possibly with the exception of some of the weirs around University Lake, that need to be improved in order to improve the overall water quality and stormwater management or flood risk reduction that the lakes can provide. But the majority of the money will be focused in phase 1 of the work will be focused on City Park, Erie, Campus, and College Lakes. Very good question about the planned I-10 construction and how it may affect phase 1. At this point, we don't know an exact answer to that question. However, we are in regular communication with DOTD, and we plan to coordinate so that hopefully, as opposed to just mitigating the impacts of the I-10 project, we'll be able to leverage the I-10 project in a way that helps us make improvements to City Park Lake in particular. So we've been in discussions with Secretary Wilson at DOTD, and we'll continue to do that so that hopefully, again, both projects benefit each other and we stay out of each other's way, if not help each other out. There's a very good question about how soon can a Baton Rouge Lakes Conservancy nonprofit be set up to begin receiving private funds to improve the areas. I don't know the exact question to that, other than we have nonprofit entities who are partners in this project with us. And as we get further along in the design process and can point to some specific improvements that might be candidates for fundraising, that will be brought forward. We're also mindful of the need for an entity to help with long-term maintenance of the project. And so those discussions are ongoing. And again, we hope to provide those opportunities soon. Timeline for correcting unsafe, two projects, or 2 questions rather, I'll take them together. One about fixing unsafe sidewalks, and another about how many feet will be removed from the lakes when they're deepened. The question, and I'm sorry, I don't have a more specific answer to either, but the timeline for correcting the unsafe sidewalk along Stanford and East Lake Shore, I can't tell you yet. That's along University Lake, which is not part of phase one. So unless there are other plans from the city parish to repair or correct that sidewalk, that would be in a future phase. In terms of how deep the lakes will be ultimately as a result of phase one, again, that will be something that will be studied through the due diligence and the flood risk reduction design. The average depth of City Park Lake is currently at about 2.5 feet. The master plan and additional reports tell us it needs to be at least double that to help improve the water quality, but we'll have more definitive answers once the flood risk reduction design is complete. I see a question about prioritizing safety, and we agree with you. It's paramount in the master plan that the number of potential points of conflict between pedestrians and vehicles or vehicles and vehicles around the lakes be reduced. That's something that we will definitely seek to achieve through the mobility improvements. Overall, with the overall schematic design for all 6 lakes, but in the near term with the mobility improvements that will be constructed around City Park and Campus Lakes. Timeline and amount of the entire project. Again, I'm sorry, the timeline will be largely contingent upon the availability of funding. We hope that through additional commitments, funding will come available so that we can just continue construction and roll into the next phase once we are into phase one. There are commitments through the state, through DOTD, and through the capital outlay process that we hope will come to fruition over the coming years, but we just don't know that yet. The amount for the entire project to deepen and reshape all 6 lakes, as well as make really the critical mobility improvements, is approximately $50 to $60 million. There are some additional long-term enhancements in the master plan that are several tens of $millions more, but we think that the critical, the mobility and safety improvements, as well as the deepening and the reshaping of the lakes are the most important places to start. And that's approximately 50 to 60 million in improvements. Will the areas be usable during construction? Very good question. We're going to endeavor to keep as much usable as we can during construction. No doubt there will be some areas that have to be closed or closed off during the process, but it's such a large resource to so many people. We certainly don't want to close down the whole area during construction. So we're going to be very mindful of that and keep as much open as we can, but still keep people safe and try to minimize disruption. Okay. We thank you very much for your participation. This presentation is recorded and will be posted on our website, csrsinc.com/lakes, as well as additional information about the project. We encourage you to follow it as we move through the procurement of these due diligence and design teams and ultimately kick off phase one. There'll be new information constantly posted there, as well as updates on where we'll have new opportunities to receive input and to take questions. There's also an email address many of you have already utilized, lakesinfo@csrsinc.com. You're welcome to submit questions there anytime, and we check that regularly and we'll respond as soon as we can. Thank you very much and have a good evening.